Ever since I bought a MacBook, I've been using the Apple Music app to listen to my offline music collection. Overall, it's a really good app and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but there is one thing that really bothered me. Keyboard shortcuts. Once you get past how nice Apple Music looks, you start seeing the cracks in its design. For example, if there is no now playing song, then pressing spacebar on a highlighted song will play it. But if I pause the now playing song and highlight a different song, pressing spacebar resumes playing the now playing song and not the one I have highlighted. I would expect that pressing enter would play the currently highlighted song, but the operating system gives me that annoying sound instead. Enter is supposed to play the highlighted song, but it broke on both my MacBooks after the update to macOS Sonoma. Even when I quit out of every other application, pressing the left and right arrow keys moves between songs. I expected the left and right arrow keys to scrub backward and forward in the song, similar to YouTube. The way you're supposed to scrub through songs is with Command-Option arrow keys, but it doesn't work if the song is stopped, and throttles how fast you can trigger it. So far, the navigation is a little clunky, but not a deal breaker just yet. Okay, let's say I want to navigate to a song in a different album. If I press Shift-Tab, the focus is put onto Albums in the sidebar. Once Albums is highlighted, I can press Enter to, that's right, play the first song in the first playlist of my entire music library. If I arrow up from Albums, it takes me to the Artists page and hijacks the focus away from the sidebar. From here, I have to press Shift-Tab 3 times to get back to the sidebar. Returning to one of my playlists, let's try to navigate up to the Albums page. If Apple Music behaved like Finder, I should be able to press Command plus up arrow to go up, but that doesn't work. If Apple Music behaved like Safari, I should be able to press Command plus left arrow to go back, but that goes back to the previous song. The shortcut for going back to the Albums page is Command left square bracket. Apparently that shortcut is consistent with how Finder works. I just never knew that was a shortcut since it's so strange. Finally, I can arrow through the albums, but I can't go into any of them with Enter or Spacebar. Maybe one of those is supposed to work. But again, the operating system update might have broken it. Why are the shortcuts in an application dependent on the version of the operating system in the first place? I should also point out that I'm recording this video on my old computer, since the keyboard controls are even more busted on the new one. There might be one saving grace here. If I can search for songs and play them easily, maybe that's good enough. But if I press Command F, which search bar will I trigger? The one on the top left, or the one on the top right? Correct! The answer is the one on the top left. After I type in my search query, it's back to the mouse to pick a song, because I can't tab over to the search results. Also, if I want to cancel my search, I'm stuck on the search page and can't go to where I just was, even with the mouse. On the topic of using the mouse, there are some other quirks to point out with the Music app. If I try to click on the currently playing song at the top of the screen, it doesn't take me to the song. I can click the album cover image, but I definitely don't want to be put into this mini player. Also, what's up with this progress bar? Why is it so small? Right now I'm recording at a reduced resolution to make everything appear bigger, but at normal resolution, this slider is like 2 pixels tall. I've had enough. Let's quit the music player with Command W. Why is the music still playing? Some people might like this, but why not make it a setting that the user can configure? If we go to Help Keyboard Shortcuts, it opens up the Tips app, so it looks like configuring shortcuts isn't a thing in Apple Music. You can change some functionality by going into the operating system settings, but it doesn't fix any of the keyboard navigation issues as far as I can tell. At first, I considered becoming Hackerman and trying to modify the Apple Music binary to change the keyboard shortcuts. I also looked at a bunch of other open source music apps, but all of them lacked the specific features I wanted from Apple Music. Then I had a better idea. Why not create my own music app and make a better version of Apple Music altogether? It won't have all the streaming features of Apple Music, or randomly download U2 albums unsolicited, but that isn't the point. I don't stream my music from any streaming service, so I can build the features for a better offline-first listening experience that no other service will. So without further ado, it is my great honor to introduce to you Warper. First of all, arrowing around and navigating up and down work as expected. That should go without saying. Enter plays the currently highlighted song, and spacebar can be used to play or pause the now playing song. I also added Tab and Shift tab for navigating through entries, in case you prefer using your left hand. When you reach the end of a list, you can wrap around to get to the other end faster. When a song is playing, you can skip forward or backward in 5-second increments using the arrow keys. When you click the song name in the Now Playing section, it takes you directly to the song. And look at this neat little waveform animation. It gives you a visual reference if you want to skip to a particular part of a song. This is especially useful for medleys, when you want to skip to a particular song in the middle of the file. Pretty neat, right? But I've been saving the best for last. If you begin typing any key on the keyboard, it brings up the search box. Let's say I want to jump to a song in a different album. All I do is start typing the title of the song, tab down to the correct search result, and press enter. To save time, pressing enter automatically selects the first search result. If you ever forget any of the keyboard shortcuts, you can view them by clicking on the keyboard icon in the top right corner, or by pressing Command/. For each button, you can hover over it to see the corresponding keyboard shortcut in the tooltip. With Warper, you'll be warping around your music library at lightning speed. Now's the part of the video where I show off how I built the software. All of the source code for Warper is on GitHub, so if you don't want to hear me yapping, you can find the link in the description. And while you're at it, a star would be much appreciated. When looking at Apple Music in the activity monitor, I noticed that it was using a decent amount of CPU and memory, so I committed myself to one-upping Apple with regards to performance. For this reason, building the app with Electron was out of the question. After searching around for desktop app frameworks, I decided to use Flutter. Admittedly, Flutter is a strange choice for building a desktop app, since its primary purpose is for building mobile apps. But I figure someday Apple will ruin their mobile app with ads or something, so I might as well be prepared. I'm not going to bore you with every detail of the source code, but there's a few interesting challenges I encountered that I thought would be worth sharing. First is this fade-in animation every time you navigate between pages. I needed to add this animation to avoid the scroll position visibly jumping from one place to another. Believe it or not, there's only one page to this entire app. The album list and song list are the same list, populated with different entries. So when navigating between pages, I need to scroll the list to the correct position automatically. The hard part is that you can't scroll to a particular widget until it has already been rendered. The fade-in animation hides the scrolling to make it less visually jarring to the user. You might think this is a weird quirk of Flutter, but the native Apple Music app appears to have this exact same problem. They just solve it a little differently. When you click on the album in Apple Music, there's a delay of about 100 milliseconds before it takes you to the song list. I suspect that Apple is rendering the widgets in a stack, with the next page hidden behind the current one. Then they wait 100 milliseconds for the scrolling to occur in the background widget before hiding the foreground widget. Essentially, Apple's loading screen is the current page, while my loading screen is blank. In retrospect, my method is slightly worse because, in addition to waiting 100 milliseconds for loading, you also have to wait for the fade-in animation to complete. However, now that I'm used to the fade-in animation, I don't really want to change it. Let's call it an artistic choice. The second major challenge I encountered building Warper is dealing with ID3 tags. ID3 tags are identification tags for MP3 files that are directly embedded into the file contents. There's tons of software out there to read ID3 tags, but none of them quite handle all the edge cases. For example, some of my songs have Japanese track names, but include special tags for the English track names. Apple Music shows the English names, but most other software shows the regular track names. A lot of ID3 libraries understand ID3 v1, but not ID3 v2, and vice versa. This was the case for the Flutter package I'm using, so I needed to fork it in order to add special parsing code to handle both versions. The final major challenge I overcame was dealing with a bug where only a fraction of the files would appear. It only occurred in release builds and never when debugging, so I tried logging all the errors to disk, but the log file was never created, which was very strange. I ended up rendering the errors in a widget on the screen, which is how I found out the application was opening too many files at once. If you didn't know, each process has a limit on how many files it can have open. I spent several hours trying to figure out what I did wrong in my code, but the culprit was in the Swift code of the ID3 tagging package. I needed to add a defer statement to close the file at the end of the function call. This one missing line of code cost me multiple hours of my life. In terms of performance, I'm happy to say that Warper uses less CPU and RAM than Apple Music in most cases. The RAM part was easy, presumably because Warper overall has less functionality than Apple Music. However, getting lower CPU usage took some extra effort. The main concern is the progress bar animation, which basically fries the CPU when re-rendering. The way I fix this is by throttling the re-renders when the window isn't focused. Funnily enough, this is also exactly what Apple Music does, although you can barely see it since the slider is so tiny. But in that case, how do I use less CPU than Apple Music? In the code, I check how many displays the user has. If you're like me and only use the built-in MacBook display, then an unfocused window means it's completely hidden behind another application in the foreground. Therefore, I can just disable animations entirely if the window isn't focused. Technically, Warper uses more CPU in the foreground, but for me, the app is in the background the majority of the time, so it's overall better. In the end, I'm really happy with how Warper turned out. If you are interested in using Warper, download it from GitHub, and leave a comment with suggestions on how to improve it. Everyone has their own tastes, but at least I have fate in my own hands with Warper. And if you enjoyed watching this video, I would really appreciate if you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.